If you've been online lately, you've probably seen this debate everywhere. People calling heated rivalry BL, others saying it's absolutely not. And a lot of people asking, does it even matter? Because right now, everything with two men in romance keeps getting labeled as BL. Western romance, gay romance, MM novels, Asian dramas, all folded into one word. And that's where the confusion starts. This isn't about saying one genre is better than another, and it's definitely not about telling anyone what they're allowed to enjoy. It's about language, about how genres are shaped by culture, audience, and intent, and what gets lost when we treat them as interchangeable. So today, we're answering one clear question: why heated rivalry isn't boys' love, and what that actually tells us about BL versus Western MM romance. Let's break it down. This debate didn't come out of nowhere, and it didn't start with heated rivalry either. What's really happening is something fans have been doing for years, just more visibly now. If you look at fandom spaces, comment sections, posts, threads, and polls, you see the same split over and over again. One side says, BL just means boys in love. Two men, romance, done. The other side pushes back and says, no, BL is a specific genre, rooted in Asia, built around certain storytelling traditions, and created with a very particular audience in mind. Both sides think they're being obvious, and that's why the conversation keeps looping. Because when fans say BL, they're often not talking about the same thing. For a lot of people, BL has slowly become shorthand for any male-male romance they enjoy, especially if it's emotional, romantic, or fandom-driven. The term travels easily, it's familiar, and it already has a massive online ecosystem attached to it. So when a Western show explodes in popularity, the label gets pulled over automatically. That's exactly why heated rivalry became a flashpoint. Not because it started the argument, but because it sat right at the crossroads of Western production, global fandom, and BL-adjacent language. The debate was already there. This just made it impossible to ignore. And before we go any further, one thing needs to be clear. This isn't about policing taste. It's not about telling anyone they're wrong for how they label what they love. It's about understanding why these words exist in the first place, and what changes when we stop using them carefully. Because once you blur the language, you also blur the genre itself. To understand why this label matters, we need to be clear about what BL actually is. Not what it's become online, but what it was built to be. BL, or boys' love, originates in Japan. It didn't start as a catch-all term. It started as a specific storytelling tradition, shaped by where it was created and who it was created for. From the beginning, BL developed across particular mediums: manga, novels, and later dramas. These weren't just love stories with male characters. They followed recognizable genre patterns, visual language, and emotional rhythms that fans learned to expect. At its core, BL leans toward fantasy. Not fantasy in the dragons and magic sense, but emotional fantasy. Heightened romance, stylized dynamics, intense longing, devotion, and emotional payoff placed at the center of the story. Romance always comes first. Plot exists to support it. Conflict exists to deepen it. And genre expectations matter. Fans don't just watch BL for a couple, they watch it for how that relationship is told. There's also an audience logic that shaped BL from the start. Historically, BL has been created primarily by women, for women. That doesn't mean men or queer viewers aren't welcome, many are. But it does explain why BL developed its own gaze, its own tropes, and its own emotional priorities. And this is where one important clarification needs to be made. BL is not the same thing as realistic representation of gay male life. It was never meant to be a documentary. It's not built to mirror lived queer experience one-to-one. BL is a genre, not an identity label. A storytelling framework with its own history, rules, and creative purpose. And once you understand that, it becomes much easier to see why not every male-male romance automatically fits inside it. Now let's talk about the other side of this conversation. Western MM romance. Because saying heated rivalry isn't BL does not mean it exists outside queer storytelling, or that it's doing something lesser. It's just doing something different. Western MM romance developed in a different ecosystem. Its roots sit largely in publishing and fanfiction culture, not in a drama-first industry built around genre conventions the way BL is. That difference matters. Romance is usually identity-forward. The character's sexuality, self-understanding, and place in the world are often central to the story, not implied, not abstracted, but directly engaged with. There's also a stronger lean towards social realism. Workplaces, power dynamics, internalized fear, public perception, personal baggage. Romance is still important, sometimes deeply emotional, but it often shares space with personal struggle, growth, and context in a way BL typically does not prioritize. Another key difference is market structure. Western romance isn't built around a drama pipeline with fixed genre expectations. It doesn't rely on shared visual language, standardized tropes, or audience-trained rhythms in the same way. Which leads to the most important distinction of all. Two men in love does not automatically mean the same genre. You can have intense chemistry, you can have devotion, you can even have familiar tropes, but similar couples don't equal the same storytelling tradition. And this is exactly where heated rivalry sits. Not outside romance, not outside queer storytelling, but firmly inside Western romance, not BL. This is where heated rivalry becomes useful, not as the center of the video, but as a case study. Because the reason this debate exploded isn't that heated rivalry is confusing on its own. It's that it sits right in the overlap between two worlds. On the surface, it feels BL adjacent to a lot of fans. The story is romance first. The emotional arc is front-loaded. The tension, devotion, and payoff are clearly designed to center the couple. It also moved through fandom in a very BL-familiar way. Shipping culture took over quickly. Fans clipped scenes, circulated edits, assigned tropes, and talked about the couple as a unit, rather than just as characters in a broader narrative. Even the way people talk about it, chemistry, moments, favorite scenes, mirrors how BL fandoms often engage with their shows. So when people say, "This feels like BL," they're not imagining things. They're responding to shared fandom behavior, not shared genre origin. But this is where the distinction matters. Because heated rivalry is not BL in how it was created. It comes from Western publishing, not from the BL industry pipeline. It wasn't developed inside a BL market, and it wasn't framed as BL by its creators. There's no BL label guiding its production, marketing, or audience expectations from the industry side. The BL label arrived later, from fans, not from the work itself. And that's the key insight here. Heated rivalry didn't cross over into BL. BL language was pulled onto it. Fans recognized emotional beats they love, used the vocabulary they already had, and applied it to something new. That doesn't make them wrong, but it does explain why the genre line started to blur. So heated rivalry doesn't sit between BL and because it's undecided. It sits there because fandom language traveled faster than genre definitions. And once you see that, the debate stops being about whether something counts and starts being about how global fandom reshapes labels in real time. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, but why does any of this actually matter? If people enjoy heated rivalry, if they enjoy BL, if they enjoy both, why not just let the labels blur? The short answer is, because labels shape expectations. Genres exist so audiences know what kind of story they're stepping into. They signal tone. They signal structure. They signal what the story is prioritizing emotionally. When you pick up something labeled BL, you're not just expecting two men in love. You're expecting a certain rhythm, a certain focus on romance, a certain way emotions are framed and paid off. When everything starts getting called BL, those expectations start breaking down. Not because the stories are bad, but because the label no longer means anything specific. And that's where flattening happens. When BL becomes shorthand for all male-male romance, it loses the cultural context that shaped it, the creative traditions behind it, the audience logic it was built around. BL stops being a genre with a history and starts becoming a vague aesthetic. And that doesn't help anyone. Not BL fans, not Western readers, and not the creators working in either space. Because this isn't about ranking stories. It's not about saying one is more valid than another. And it's definitely not about gatekeeping enjoyment. It's about clarity. Letting BL be BL. Letting Western MM romance be what it is. And understanding that overlap doesn't mean erasure. When we use genre language more carefully, we don't shrink the conversation. We make space for more stories to exist side by side, without being forced into the same box. And that's the part people often miss. So yes, the overlap is real. Genres travel. Fandom language evolves. And stories don't stay locked inside borders the way they used to. But origins still matter. Not to limit what stories can be, but to understand why they feel the way they do. Heated rivalry doesn't stop being meaningful because it isn't BL. BL doesn't lose value because other kinds of MM romance exist alongside it. They're connected, but they're not the same thing. And maybe the more interesting question isn't whether something counts, but how you define BL for yourself. Is it about where a story comes from, how it's told, or simply how it makes you feel? If this breakdown gave you something new to think about, consider liking or subscribing for more pauses like this. I hope this pause in the chaos made you think. And if it did, let me know. How do you draw the line between BL and MM romance? Until next time, this is GPkP.